Okay. Best Picture. Final category. Here are the nominees. Zero Dark 30, Silver Linings Playbook, Lincoln, Les Miserables, Life of Pi, Amour, Django Unchained, Argo, Beasts of the Southern Wild. Okay, Tony, we'll go with you first.
One of the things that's interesting to me is that films that came out at the beginning of the year are forgotten.
Mm-hmm.
Dark Knight Rises didn't get a single award. The Avengers only got one award. The Hunger Games got nothing.
Right.
And I think she was as good. Jennifer Lawrence was as good in The Hunger Games as she was in Silver Linings Playbook.
I agree, and that's, by the way, that supports my thing that why she's going to win, because she's got those two movies, and I agree, she's just as good in Hunger Games as she was in Silver Linings.
I was surprised
about the Dark Knight.
that it didn't get any mention. I mean, it seems like the Academy these days, I know they're getting older, but they even have less attention spans than they used to.
Yeah.
Everything that comes out before October or before November.
Yeah. Can I ask a question about
well,
the Dark Knight?
you do have Argo and Beasts of the Southern Wild. Argo came out in like September, and
came out in October. Beasts in
October,
summer.
and then and Beasts of the Southern Wild came out like in February. So.
And this is also 4 of these are $100 million plus gross.
Yeah. Let me ask a question though about The Dark Knight Rises. The reason that we have more than 5 picture nominees is because everyone said the second film, The Dark Knight, got screwed out of a Best Picture nomination. Here we have the possibility of 10 nominations. We get 9 nominations. You could find it in your heart to give The Dark Knight Rises and not just at least throw it a bone, a Best Picture nomination. You couldn't do that. And let me ask, is it because of the shooting? Is it because... No, seriously, Dean, this is something to take into consideration here. Is it that it's always going, or at least for the next couple of years, it's going to have that it's tainted somewhat?
I don't think it is.
That's an interesting thought, one I hadn't even thought of. But the other films of that time, or of the first half of the year, weren't mentioned either.
The Gray wasn't mentioned.
I mean, Hunger Games might have gotten. Was that also because of the violence? If
it's because of the violence, and you have Django and Zero Dark 30 in the best. I don't think it's not so much the violence. I think the Dark Knight, because of that. I don't want.
Look, they're never going to nominate. Look, the bottom line is they're never, ever, ever, ever in the history of mankind are never going to nominate a movie that's based on a comic book. Period. End of story. Never going to happen.
If they nominate Man of Steel, I'm coming after you, Dean.
That's not going to happen either. Okay. It's never going to happen. Underline it. Put it in yellow.
I think
never going to happen.
If there are 10 nominees the year that Dark Knight came out, I think Dark Knight would have been nominated. I think the main reason why Dark Knight Rises wasn't nominated is because the common consensus is it's not as good a movie as The Dark Knight for most people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, so did you say what you...
No, I'm going on record in the first 3 minutes of thinking that Lincoln was... Okay. Almost a lock. It is a lock. I see so many things in its favor, and I want to stress this or emphasize, especially if somebody's just turned it on, that it's affected all audiences. It's affected people who really don't go to the movies anymore, and this picture brought them back. And that kind of universality, I think, is very much a strong point in its effectiveness, in the ultimate reward. And I also think, as some other people have suggested, that there's not a whole lot of like last year, I was blown away by Melancholia. Now, it didn't get an award, but there was to me that was a work of art.
Right, I agree.
There's no film here in this whole list that I think in 10 years will be in any conversation. So I go Lincoln.
There may be some truth to that, I think.
I disagree with that. I think, I do think that a more will be looked on as like, when they make when they make the.
But I think it's still esoteric. It's still. It will be it is a classic film. It will be a classic film. I'm not a believer in instant classics like Rich Reed is, but it will be a classic because it has done what has seldom, if ever, done before, and it has done it extremely well. You're right.
I think that Lincoln will win Best Picture, and I actually think that no one will be very excited about it. I think this will be one. It would almost feel like an obligation for the voters, and I think out of the 6,000 plus in the voting academy, I think the average age is something like 56 or something.
But the other thing, excuse me for interrupting you. I mean, the artist. Who remembers the artist?
Yeah. Thank you.
Who remembers Slumdog Millionaire?
Well, I remember Slumdog more than I remember the artist, but
yeah.
I agree with you, Tony. You bring up a lot of good points, and also Melancholia was my favorite film of last year. I think Lincoln is the safest film that's up there. And let's be very honest. I'm watching a movie, and all I can think about is Obama during the movie, during the trailer especially. I don't mean that as a
that's definite plus.
Yeah, to me, the movie's more about Obama than it is Lincoln, as far as I'm concerned. I like the movie, but the more I think about it, it's not like, I can't wait for this to come out in Blu-ray. But I do think Lincoln.
You don't think it's a great movie, right?
I think let me put it to you like this. I think Spielberg has better luck with historical films lately than he does with popcorn movies. I do think Lincoln, along with Munich and War Horse, is better than a lot of his stuff that we would put in the big blockbuster category. I think this is where his strength is. But as far as those historical movies go, I think Munich is the best thing he's done in the last 10 years.
I agree.
Munich is just powerful. It's not black and white. It is not black and white at all. It is very gray. And I like War Horse, but War Horse is very sentimental, as you say. It has a lot of emotional pull. Lincoln has it at times, but when it does have it, then there are things I think that does kill it though. When it does have those emotional moments, it doesn't know when to end. It has the problem, the traditional Spielberg problem. He doesn't know when to leave well enough alone.
But you think it'll win Best Picture?
Yeah, I do. I mean, that's just Tony said it best with the medium, or whoever said about the medium age of the voters. This is it. I'm surprised Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter didn't get nominated with the problems they were having with the voting.
Yeah, that's true. I voted for the wrong Lincoln movie.
My take on the whole Lincoln thing is that, I said when 2 years ago or 3 years ago when I first heard it was in production, I said, that's going to win Best Picture. And I thought it was going to come out next year, and I said, this is next year's Best Picture winner. But it took 2 years for it to come out. But and I've only wavered on this once, very briefly, but I've always maintained that, if a movie called Lincoln is up for Best Picture, they're not going to be able to live with themselves not giving it Best Picture. They just, when you see that, how they come out with a poster every year and the Oscars, show all the past Best Picture winners and everything like that, you got to have a movie called Lincoln winning Best Picture. You just have to have it, even if it's just a half. In my opinion, it's not as good as it should have been, and it probably shouldn't have been called Lincoln. It should have been called Team of Rivals, because then we would have gotten. I think our problem with the film Lincoln, comes down to sometimes. I think it comes down to a thing of marketing, an issue of marketing. They didn't call it Team of Rivals because everybody would have gone, what is that? And here's Lincoln. It's on the poster, but it's called Team of Rivals? That would have been strange. So they had to call it Lincoln. When you have, it's just, to me, it's like, it's just a done deal.
Can I add something, though, to this film? We're talking about how well liked it is. There's one group of people who do not like the film that much, and that's African Americans. They're not crazy about the film. I was listening to his Washington Watch with Roland Martin, and he interviewed a historian from Howard University. While they agree, and I agree with him, the acting is wonderful, the performances are great and everything. The blacks in the movie are cardboard cutout characters. They really don't really exist.
I said in my review
that first scene is pretty much of an embarrassment, if you ask me.
That is a problem that in all seriousness, Django Unchained is the honest movie about as far as slavery goes.
The ugliness of slavery. Yeah. I agree completely. Tony, what were you about to say?
I was just going to say in my review, I said that Spielberg uses black people like product placement.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's some truth to that. I mean,
I don't know if that contingency. I don't know what percentage of the Academy is African American, but I don't think it'll keep Lincoln from winning.
No, I don't. I'm just saying that's something I've just heard recently.
I think all the other nominees are a slave to Lincoln. That's my metaphor.
Oh God! That's what we're gonna be famous for, Jamie.
It would have been too perfect. It would have been too perfect if The Master had been nominated for Best Picture right alongside Lincoln.
We thought. But going back to The Master, we thought The Master would be nominated in every category before it came out. We thought that was the front runner. Going into
I know that movie's Fall from Grace is just one of the strangest movie stories of the entire year, if you ask me. It's just and why? I mean, it gets 3 acting nominations, but I don't know. Why is it not in screenplay? Why is it not in photography? Why is it not in Best Picture, even director, or and also original score?
That's the thing where I think I agree.
That just blows my mind.
Yeah.
It's a great score, beautiful score.